Now, let me just remind you of another Labor broken promise and warn you about where it might be heading. Yesterday, the Treasurer Jim Chalmers announced a new chairman for the Future Fund. This is the massive sovereign wealth fund that invests more than $270 billion of our money to try to cover the government's future superannuation and other liabilities. It's been a big success under the current chair, the former Coalition Treasurer Peter Costello, who established it. But now Labor is handing over the reins to former union boss and former climate change minister Greg Combet.
What we want to do here is to make sure that the Future Fund is an important economic and financial institution into the future. The first step in ensuring that is making sure that we get this fresh thinking and this fresh leadership.
Fresh leadership? Fresh thinking? Why would you need fresh thinking when the fund has been safe and secure and it's provided strong returns? Well, the answer, I fear, is that Labor wants to put the fund to political use. They want it to invest in its pet projects like renewable energy projects. Remember a year ago, that's after the election, of course, Jim Chalmers wrote a lengthy article outlining his bold economic agenda. It was called Capitalism After the Crises, and it talked about redefining and reforming, his words, redefining and reforming our economy and institutions. I called this out at the time. Have a look. It is radical and it will lead to diabolical consequences, as we've already seen in the electricity sector. And remember, it's an agenda of deceit, an agenda Labor has lied about, because this is what Chalmers was saying before the election.
What we are proposing is responsible and meaningful change, not radical change. What we are proposing is responsible and meaningful change, not radical change.
Yeah, that was before the election. Now, Comrade Chalmers writes that it's not just our economic institutions that need renewing and restructuring, but the way our markets allocate and arrange capital as well. Yep, they do have a radical agenda, so that pre-election promise was a lie. It's another broken promise because they're delivering a radical economic agenda. Labor doesn't want to just change the way governments spend money. They want to change the way markets allocate and arrange capital. So putting Greg Combet in charge of the Future Fund is a big worry. Could it become a Labor special projects fund? You know, investing in so-called nation-building projects or political favourites. Imagine if it did its dough on something crazy and political like Snowy Hydro 2.0. Well, the inaugural chairman of Future Fund is worried. David Murray ran the Commonwealth Bank before he chaired the Future Fund, and he's told the Australian newspaper that he's worried about the risks to the fund. Ever since I did the financial system inquiry, Greg Combet has been a cheerleader for this so-called nation-building stuff. I think the risks here are substantial, Murray said, adding that he would counsel the Future Fund against doing anything like that because it will create more risk and prejudice its returns. Yeah, I certainly share his concerns, and so should all informed Australians. Labor can't help themselves. They are a democratic socialist party, after all. That's what it says in their party platform. They don't like capitalism, so they can't help trying to meddle in it. They promised not to before the election. Now they're going to let it rip. And we're the ones who are usually left to pick up the tab.